As you traipse through the jungle, you come across large hanging fruit on trees. You realize this is the acclaimed cacao fruit, and if you collect enough, you can get a tiny little profit by selling it to the right markets. In Cacao, which is designed by Phil Walker Harding and published by Z-Man Games, you will be collecting all the cacao that your arms can carry and selling it to markets throughout the jungle. Hi everybody, my name is Nick Murphy, one half of the Brothers Murph, and we are here with Board Game Geek, and today's In Focus is sponsored by the Board Game Geek store. Well, it's time to explore the jungle, so why don't you join me as we go in focus on Cacao. Cacao is a tile placement resource collecting game where you will be gathering cacao fruits, selling them at the market, paddling up rivers, visiting temples, and trying to end the game with the most gold. Each player will be given a set of worker tiles in their color, and these will be placed out on the ever-growing board in order to activate jungle tiles. Worker tiles have, shocker, workers on them. Each tile will have exactly 4 workers, but they will be distributed along the sides in different numbers. On their turn, a player must place out a worker tile in any orientation with at least one side adjacent to a jungle tile. After the tile has been placed, if an empty space on the board is surrounded by 2 worker tiles of any color, the active player will choose a jungle tile from the display and place it in the empty spot. In this way, the players will make a checkerboard pattern of worker and jungle tiles. Once the worker tile has been placed and jungle tiles have been filled in, players will activate their workers. Each worker on the newly placed worker tile will activate the jungle tiles adjacent to it, and if any jungle spaces were filled in, each player with workers next to the new jungle tile may now activate it. So players may activate their workers on other players' turns, and some workers will activate much later than others on the same tile. So we've got our workers down in these interesting delayed activation, but what do these jungle tiles do? A player will be able to activate a jungle tile as many times as they have workers adjacent to it. For instance, this plantation will give the player 3 cacao for the workers adjacent. And speaking of plantations, the plantations will give players 1 or 2 cacao for every worker. But we need to sell that cacao for gold, and we need to activate a market to do so. A player can sell 1 cacao per worker for the listed price in an activated market, either 2, 3, or 4 gold. If a player comes across a gold mine, they will simply receive either 1 or 2 gold. Water tiles will allow a player to move their water carrier up the river of their player board, and the position of your carrier will add or subtract gold at the end of the game. Temples are simple area majority. At the end of the game, the player with the most workers adjacent to a temple will gain 6 gold, whereas second most will gain 3. And lastly, sun worshipping sites will give the player sun tokens. These will be used near the end of the game. Eventually the jungle tiles will run out, but the game doesn't end until everyone has placed all of their worker tiles. Once the jungle tiles run out, players may spend a sun token and place one of their worker tiles on top of one of their existing tiles on the board, reactivating those jungle tiles adjacent to it with their new workers. As stated, the game will end once all worker tiles have been placed, and at that point the game will score. Players will gain gold for having the majority on a temple, and they will gain or lose gold depending on where their water carrier is on the river. Lastly, they will get 1 gold for each leftover sun token, and the player with the most gold at the end of this adventure will win. This game has a very different feel to it compared to most other simple tile laying games. The fact that you never actively place jungle tiles unless a spot needs to be filled in makes the choice of when and where you place your tiles very interesting. You have to always be thinking ahead. You always have to be aware of what spots are open where on the board at all times. If this kind of tile laying seems interesting to you, make sure to check out Cacao's page on Board Game Geek. There you can find videos, reviews, forums, and much, much more. Well, until next time, I have been Nick Murphy. We are here with Board Game Geek going in focus on Cacao. Have a great one.